One of the interesting things to look at in some detail. This is a section that I thought we would focus on to end today, is looking at this question of the theme of brotherhood, and the way that brotherhood operates. It's an interesting situation, because Baldwin is, interestingly enough, paralleling his relationship with his brother. It's not identical in the sense that Baldwin was the older brother. Baldwin was, and his brother, who has played a pivotal role in his life. There have been several documentaries about James Baldwin that are worth watching and looking at. But in their relationship, his brother, who was the younger one, was the stable one. He was the ex-military, as the brother is in Sonn'ys Blues, who has no name. He's given no name in the story. He was the one who, this is James Baldwin's brother, was the one who, in times of crisis, looked after Baldwin. Baldwin drank often, a lot, and his brother was the one to rescue him. In fact, when they finally moved to France, his brother lived with him in France and in Morocco, and looked after him and cared for him when Baldwin was sick and dying. His brother had children. His brother was a support mechanism for him. His brother was somebody who went out of his way to deal with his affairs because, of course, Baldwin was not always brilliant about handling his affairs and so on. So there's a very interesting way in which Baldwin is writing about their lives. But what is the point of that? I don't think Baldwin is just writing about or exploring themes of his life for the sake of exploring themes of his life. I think what Baldwin was very interested in Sonn'ys Blues, and it chose to write it from the perspective of the brother, observing observing Sonn'y. It's a way to look at the artist and the black artist, in America, the black, and also just the function of the artist. And Baldwin was of the view and seemed to want to hold to the view that somehow the artist has to be given the space to be an artist, the space to be somebody who is even separated from society, somebody who is driven by the need to create art and to create beauty, and in the process of doing so, other things may fall away. And it's absolutely clear in Sonn'ys Blues that this is the frustration of his brother. This frustration of his brother was the idea that Sonn'y seemed to need support, in order to do the things that he did. Sonn'y would join the army. He did spend time and so on. Came back, became a drug addict, but also was very clear that his addiction was, he said it, his addiction was largely as a part of his artistic inspiration and his artistic drive, which sounds hokey, and his brother thought it was hokey, but there's a way in which Baldwin writes it with absolute sincerity, that Sonn'y really, really believed this. And what is telling about it is that what what Baldwin does is he uses the story of this artist to look at the reality of jazz musicians during the bebop era. The bebop era in jazz, as I remember in early lectures we talked about, is the era that started in the early 1940s through the 1960s and early 70s. And that was the emergence of the superstar horn players like Miles Davis and Coltrane and Dizzy Gillespie, all of these incredible musicians and pianists and so on, who were changing American music and changing the idea of what jazz music really is. And a high percentage of these people, Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday, the great jazz musicians, became addicts and struggled with addiction. Um, and and in a sense, there's a way in which what Baldwin is doing in the stories, the way in which they were dismissed as just junkies, is something that Baldwin is resisting. And his brother looks at Sonn'y and sort of thinks of him as a junkie at first, but begins to realize that there's something else that's happening. There's something else that's profound and so on, and that the addiction was also a way to survive um, what they felt like the pressures of the psychological pressures of living their lives. And yet, for what is the transformation? What is the savior? The artist struggles. The artist faces the pressures of failure. The artist faces the struggle to feed himself, to live. And the artist makes choices that are not the best choices. But where does Baldwin take that at the end of the day? Where does it end? And what is the revelation? Well, what we do know is at the end of the story, the brother has an epiphany. The brother comes to understand something about art and about his brother Sonn'y, and that moment is one of the most pivotal moments in the work, and I think speaks to what Baldwin is actually trying to do.